ShutterBug, written by Iriley, read to you by Evie is Evil. Chapter 19. Author's Notes. Long chapter. Well, longer. Enjoy.
What's up with the paper?
Tim asks as Peter sits next to him, the younger man being in his biochemistry class.
I'll be out for a few days, so that's just to let them know and to not kick me from the class.
Tim nods, but before he can say anything, they're interrupted by a familiar voice.
Dropping the class already, Parker?
Peter looks up at Darius and just shakes his head.
I'll be out a few days, not that it's any of your business.
He mumbles the last bit, but he's sure Darius heard it, even if he doesn't react outside of his eye twitching. Darius looks over at Tim before smirking.
I see you made your rounds on the family.
Excuse me? Tim says in a low voice.
Oh, you don't know? Peter and your brother Jason were out just last week, getting lunch, I think. You better be careful. This one's only interested in the money.
Tim stands, nearly knocking the chair back, but Peter speaks before he can. I thought I made this clear last time. I don't need their money. I don't even want it. I have my own. Darius gives a skeptical look, before giving an evil grin.
Prove it.
Tim looks ready to defend Peter, but Peter just slips his phone out and opens his banking app, quickly making sure that his information isn't pulled up and that it only shows his balance. Flipping the phone around so that the screen is facing the two, Peter lifts an eyebrow. Darius looks for a moment before scoffing.
It's not even that much.
That's because I've worked for it, and I didn't just get it from my mommy and daddy. Peter snaps back. Darius looks like he wants to say more, but the professor calls for the beginning of class. After class. Darius has stormed out of the class after the teacher dismissed them, due to Peter getting a question right when Darius didn't, said in front of the entire class. When Tim suggests, they start getting the Halloween costumes ready. A short text later, and they were all on their way to a crafting store.
Where are we taking all of this, by the way? Well, I doubt Bruce will be mad. I feel like he'd just offer to have them made for us.
It's Duke who asks. Steph and Cass nod in agreement.
We can use my dorm,
Tim suggests, but gets a hardcore no from his siblings.
Last time we went to your dorm,
Duke starts, pausing as Steph jumps in. Or apartment, Duke nods.
Or apartment. We couldn't get anything done because of how much you already had in there. Half-finished projects that may be, but we can't put Peter through that. Cass is still traumatized.
As if to prove Duke's point, Cass holds her arms and shivers.
We could use my place? Well, my dorm.
All four heads look at him, and Peter wonders if this is a good idea.
That would work, as long as you don't mind, of course.
Peter gives a nod, saying it would be fine. Then the next stop is the crafting store, Steph shouts as she grabs Peter in Duke's arms, dragging them forward as she runs past them. At the craft store. Walking up and down the aisle, Peter looks at the fabrics. Spotting a dark brown leather, he turns to Tim.
Are we going to make the entire costume or try to find some parts?
Tim seems to think a bit before seeing what Peter was looking at.
We'll probably make everything, but I know where to find the perfect leather jacket for it.
He smirks as he says it, so Peter gets the faint feeling of mischief. Peter nods and turns to look at the other fabric.
Why do they even have bulletproof material here?
Tim laughs, but answers.
I mean, it is Gotham.
Like that's supposed to explain everything, Peter thinks, even though he gets it. Peter grabs what he needs from the shelf in front of him before moving into the aisle, leaving Tim to keep looking. Spotting a few other fabrics he needs, Peter moves to grab them, stopping as he sees someone else do the same.
Sorry, you take it,
he says, turning towards what he now sees as a girl. Said girl has short blonde hair, deep brown eyes, and is wearing a white shirt with a yellow jacket over it, a pair of jeans and white shoes to match. It's fine, I don't need much. We could probably split it. Peter nods and gives a smile. Name's Tara, by the way. You? She sticks her hand out, and Peter takes it as he responds.
Peter, nice to meet you.
She smiles, but her hand squeezes tightly around his hand. Peter didn't react, and that seems to give her whatever she was looking for.
Hey Peter, you almost done? We need to swing by another shop, and it's getting quite dark.
As Tim looks up, Peter stands there by himself. The girl, Tara, having disappeared. The only evidence of her being there is a small piece of paper sitting in Peter's hand.
Yeah, I just have to check out,
he says as he pockets the paper. Whatever this was, he didn't want to drag them into it. Peter's apartment. Once everyone is settled, Peter starts to make dinner.
Are you guys okay with chicken Alfredo?
Getting a chorus of yeses, Peter starts to cook. With Tim. Sitting in Peter's living room, Tim glances around, noting the lack of pictures, despite the older man being a photographer. Spotting a binder on the coffee table, Tim slides it closer to him. Duke, who's on his right, gives him a look.
What?
Tim asks as he lifts the flap of the binder. Duke sighs before commenting.
You and your snooping.
If he didn't want anyone to see it, he should have put it away. Tim is quick to defend himself. Once the flap is fully open, Tim sees familiar faces. Duke looks over his shoulder to get a better look.
I didn't even know he took a picture. These are good.
Tim nods in agreement as he flips to the next page. A picture of Bruce and Jason, one similar to the others he's seen. The difference being how they looked happier in the photo. The next page is a picture of Signal, the same one that showed up in newspapers a few weeks ago. Huh. Following that was a picture of Nightwing, Red Hood, Spoiler, and... Holy shit! Peter had gotten a picture of Bruce, or rather of Batman, giving a lollipop to a little girl? What?
Oh, I see you found my portfolio. But I guess found is a bit of a stretch, considering it was on the table.
Peter laughs from his spot in the kitchen entrance.
Yeah, sorry. I couldn't help myself.
Tim rubs the back of his head as he speaks. To be fair, he does feel bad. Kinda.
It's all good. I would have put it away if I didn't want people to look.
He laughs again, but Tim pauses. Wasn't that the same thing he said to Duke?
Dinner's ready,
Peter says, turning back into the kitchen. Cass and Steph reemerge from the other room, looking at the binder. The two had been petting Cat Jason. When did he... Tim stops Steph from speaking further. If his suspicions are right, and they normally are, then Peter has better hearing than normal. Standing to get a plate, Tim notices another page in the binder. Flipping the page, Tim pulls out his one with a smirk, snapping a quick photo and sending it to Jason. Walking into the kitchen, Tim sits at the table where plates have already been set out.
You really made this?
Duke says between bites.
Yep, it's a bit of a family recipe,
Peter says with a light chuckle, almost like it was an inside joke. Tim takes a small bite, then taking a bigger one. It was good. Even Cass was eating big bites. Peter joined them at the table after making sure they had drinks. It doesn't take long before they've finished dinner, and Peter starts to collect the dishes. Duke jumps up and offers to help, Cass following behind. With that, they had set up a dish line. Peter would wash the dish, Duke would dry it, and Cass would put it away. With their setup, the dishes only take a few minutes. Moving back into the living room, they got to work. Peter, having moved the coffee table, freezing momentarily at the binder on top. Tim assumes Peter gets embarrassed, since the man proceeds to hit his foot on the leg, lays out the fabric on the floor to cut. The others do the same where they've set up. Surprisingly, Peter was well-equipped and was good at making clothes. The others, not so much.
I think it's crooked,
Duke says from his spot across the room. Peter laughs, but not in a mocking tone, before standing up and making his way over to help. This continues for a while longer, Peter stopping to help when they needed it, and to refill drinks, even though they told him they could get it themselves. Peter's ever the host. He had even come back with a big plate of cookies.
I made these yesterday, so they should be fine. If you want something else, I can make it.
Steph gives Peter a hug, 'cause they're almost as good as Alfred's, which they explain is high praise to Peter. Soon enough, they have the basics done and decide they'll do the rest another day. Piled onto the now cleared floor, Peter having gotten blankets and pillows for them all to use.
You guys can use the bed. If you're not comfortable doing that, I can grab some extra blankets,
Peter tells the girls. They smile and take him up on the offer. Once Tim and Peter are settled on the floor, Duke had claimed the couch, it's not long before they start to drift to sleep. Waking up to movement, Tim starts to hear Peter's hushed voice. Looking over, Tim sees a very much still asleep Peter mumbling.
Just a sleep talker.
Just as Tim moves to go back to sleep, something he doesn't do often, he hears what Peter is saying.
No needles. Don't want needles. Stop. Don't need.
Peter turns away and he stops mumbling, falling into a more peaceful sleep. Reaching for his phone, going blind momentarily at his brightness being too high, Tim sends a quick message to Jason and Dick, aka the Knows Peter Has Spider DNA squad. Tim.
Peter was sleep-talking and mentioned needles. Specifically, no needles. Stop. Don't want them.
Delivered. 2:48 a.m. Once it's delivered, Tim sets his phone down and goes back to sleep. With Peter the next morning. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, Peter sits up and looks around. Seeing Tim and Duke still asleep, Peter gets the feeling that the girls are too. Quietly standing, Peter makes his way to the kitchen, starting to make breakfast for everyone. Deciding on pancakes, Peter is quick to make the batter and start to cook, pulling out different fruits and toppings to let them make their own. A stack of pancakes later, and Peter's turning off the stove before moving to do the dishes. Scrubbing the bowl in the sink and rinsing it off, Peter moves to place it on the drying rack, only to have it picked up immediately. Jumping, Peter looks over to see Cass silently drying the dish.
How long have you been there?
He asks, minding his voice as to not wake the others. Since you made the batter, she signs and points to the plate of pancakes.
Huh.
His spider senses have been off recently, but he'd thought they were coming back. Guess not. They continue the process until all the dishes are done and away. Peter thanks her for the help as she sits down to eat, Peter moving to wake the others.
Duke, time to wake up.
No.
Come on.
Peter tugs on the younger man's blanket, said man grabbing onto it tighter. Sighing as he lets go, Peter shrugs.
Guess I'll have to eat all the pancakes. Pancakes?
Duke sits up and is in the kitchen before Peter can blink. Laughing, Peter turns to Tim and does the same. Nothing. Trying again and getting the same result has Peter thinking the man died in his sleep. That is, until Duke pops his head out.
He's hard to wake up. Try Steph first.
After his bit of wisdom, Duke pops his head back into the kitchen. Moving towards his bedroom, Peter knocks on the door.
Steph, I made pancakes.
No sooner than he said it did she open the door.
Can you get Tim up on your way? I tried, but he couldn't.
Peter watches as Steph, without breaking stride, kicks Tim, lightly-ish, in the chest. I'm up. He has a piece of hair stuck to his face, but does get up, smoothing it back as he walks to the kitchen, drawn in by the smell. Shaking his head at his friend's antics, Peter follows behind. Pausing at that thought, Peter lets a small smile grow on his face. My friends, he thinks as he sits down, making a plate of food before adding his toppings. The last friends he had been Gwen and Harry, and before that, MJ and Ned. Those were just his normal friends, though. Deadpool had wormed his way in not long after the spell. With him came a very reluctant Daredevil. Punisher and the X-Men were nice too. Even Wolverine came around. Punisher even shared his Alfredo recipe with him. Lost in thought, Peter misses the notification on his phone. Peter, you got a reminder on your phone. Snapping out of his thoughts, Peter looks down, eyes widening as he stands. Shit, I'm gonna miss my bus. Running out of the kitchen and into his bedroom, Peter quickly gets ready before grabbing his packed bag and camera. What bus? Steph asks, watching as Peter slips his shoes on.
Bus to Metropolis. Photo shoot job. There's a spare key in the cabinet next to the sink. Lock the door before you leave, please. Thanks.
And with that, Peter's down the hall and is taking the stairs 2 at a time. With Steph. What the hell was that? She says, oh so intelligently.
Sounds like he's going to Metropolis for a photo shoot?
Duke says, as Tim just shrugs. Meow. Looking down, Steph sees cat Jason and realizes he hasn't been fed. Where does he keep the cat food? Cass seems to be a step ahead, like usual, and is already pouring food into a bowl on the floor.
Do you think he told Jason that he was leaving Gotham for a bit?
Duke asks. Tim speaks for the first time that morning.
Probably. They text pretty often.
That gets a nod from the group, but Cass starts to sign. Forgot he was leaving today. This gets a hum from Tim, but the man just shrugs.
That's true. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's Metropolis. What could go wrong?
Seeing the look he was getting, Tim continues.
I just jinxed it, didn't I?
Steph smacks him on the back of the head. With Peter. Having just made the bus, Peter had sat in the front after paying his toll. Swiftly connecting his headphones to his phone to listen to music, Peter lets his head rest on the window. 3.5-hour bus ride later. Stepping off the bus, Peter stretches his legs out, his back popping with the motion. Looking around the bright city, Peter realizes that this was his first time out of Gotham since coming to this world. It's so different that Peter thinks he's entering another new world. Looking around for his contact, Peter spots a familiar face.
Mr. Kent, what are you doing here?
Peter asks as he walks towards the man. Said man smiles before responding.
I'm here to pick you up. I'm your connection from the Daily Planet. If I'm not mistaken, you'll be staying with me while you're here. So long as you're okay with that?
Peter smiles and gives a big nod. They start to make their way through the crowd and into a car. Peter climbs into the back, as Clark does the same in the passenger seat. A lady with long black hair is sitting in the driver's seat. Hello, you must be Peter. My name is Lois. Her blue eyes meet Peter's through the rearview mirror as he says his hellos. Our first stop will be the Daily Planet. Get you an ID card and explain the job in more detail. Peter nods at her words, but before he can say anything, he's cut off by his stomach, earning a laugh from the two. Scratch that. Our first stop is to get some lunch. Peter agrees with a light blush. So much for first impressions. They pull into a tall building with what looks like a spinning globe on top. They had stopped to get sandwiches on the way. Good, but not as good as Delmar's, and had made their way here shortly after. Welcome to the Daily Planet. The doors open as people walk in and out of the building. Was that a Jurassic Park reference? Peter asks, getting a laugh out of Lois and a confused look from Clark. He's never seen it, I'm afraid. Peter's head snaps towards Clark, the man in question giving a shy smile.
We are so watching it later.
The older man nods.
Looking forward to it.
After the declaration, they make their way into the building and up to one of the top floors. It kind of reminded Peter of a mix between Stark Tower and the Daily Bugle. There were desks that lined the walls, as well as some offices. Peter is directed into a large office by a wall of windows. A tall man with graying brown hair sits at the desk in a black suit. The nameplate on the desk tells Peter who the man is before he can introduce himself.
Perry White, pleasure to meet you.
Peter shakes his hand as they talk.
Peter Parker, pleasure's all mine. I'm a big fan of your work. The article you wrote about the nuclear power plant?
The larger man gives a hearty laugh and claps him on the shoulder.
You've studied up, I see. Good. Now, down to the nitty-gritty.
The large man, Perry, sits down and motions for Peter to do the same. Clark stays standing in the back, and Lois leaves the office to attend to her own work.
I've seen the pictures you've taken. They're well done.
Perry starts. Thank you, sir. Peter quickly replies, waiting for the man to continue.
So, the deal is that we had a big shot come in and request you for a photo shoot. Now, normally we wouldn't have pulled you all the way out here, but the man wouldn't take anyone else but you. And you had to come here, so thanks for that.
It's not a problem. I'm honored that I was chosen.
Careful you're not too modest. People will take advantage of that, especially this guy.
Clark sleeks up at this.
Who is it, this big shot?
Perry grumbles, but responds.
You know him well, Clark. It's Lex Luthor.
This seems to solidify Clark's frown. Peter can hear the man mumble a near inaudible,
What would he want with Peter?
That Peter only heard thanks to his super hearing. Peter gets the feeling that this Lex guy will be difficult. He still has a job to do, so Peter steels himself for it. After a bit more explanation, Peter's let loose to get an ID card.
You're an honorary employee, and you're welcome any time.
He had even gotten a job offer, he thinks.
If you ever want to expand your career, you know where to find me.
They had gotten his ID, one bad picture later, and Peter had taken to exploring while Clark got pulled away to help on a project. He had spent most of his time wandering down different hallways, until he spotted a younger man sitting on the stairs. Hello? The boy's head snaps up at him at his call-out. Oh, hi. I haven't seen you around before. Peter smiles as he walks closer to the boy. I'm just here for a job. Mind if I sit? The boy doesn't answer, instead moving over to let Peter have more room. Sitting, Peter continues to talk. My name's Peter. What's yours? John, the boy, John, says as he fidgets with his shoelaces. Nice to meet you, John. What are you doing on the stairs? John looks up at him, showing Peter his face for the first time. I got out of school early and walked here to wait for my mom and dad. Normally they pick me up, but I couldn't get through. Peter gives an understanding nod. I get that. Who's your mom and dad, by the way? Maybe I can help you find them? Peter has an idea of who the boy's parents are. Lois and Clark. They're on higher floors, but I can't get in unless I have a pass.
Thought so.
Peter thinks as he stands. Here, I'll take you up. Peter shows his ID, and John stands up to follow him. Looking at the boy now, Peter can tell he's in his last year or so of middle school, or is a freshman in high school, around Damien's age, his mind supplies. A short ride and a scanned ID later, they're on the right floor and looking for Clark. Dad! John shouts as he runs up to Clark, who looks mildly confused.
Aren't you supposed to be in school?
John shakes his head before explaining. School got out early. I tried to call you. Peter let me up, so it's fine. Clark sees Peter walking up as John says this and says a quiet, Thank you, which Peter nods to.
It's about time to call it a day anyways. Shall we?
Clark says as he collects his things, sending a quick bye to Lois, John saying hi and goodbye, before leading them down. Once in the elevator, Clark starts to talk.
John.
Seeing he had the boy's attention, he continues.
As you know, we'll be having someone stay with us for a few days. That's Peter. He's a friend of the Waynes and a photographer.
John looks at Peter and gives a smile before responding. You know Damien? He's my best friend. Peter smiles back and nods. This leads to John going into detail about what they get up to, cutting himself off partway through some stories before moving on to the next. Many half-stories later, they arrive at an apartment building. Up on the 6th floor, they make it into a neat apartment. There is photos around the room, images of Clark and 2 older people, the Kents, he assumes. Images of John and another boy, same short black hair and blue eyes, Only this boy is older and has a few piercings, donning a leather jacket. Next to it is a picture of Clark, John, and Lois, a noticeable wedding band on their fingers. He also sees a picture of Clark and Bruce, both smiling, the wedding band no longer on Clark's hand. Next to that photo is also of Clark and Bruce, but this time there's a group of people. A woman with long black hair, a man with short red hair, face covered in freckles, another man with a buzzed hairstyle, and another with short brown hair. Clark and Bruce look younger in this photo. Peter hears a shout, and his nose is attacked by a strong burning smell. Running into the kitchen, Peter sees what he assumes was dinner. A charred piece of beef crumbles as Clark pulls the knife out of it.
Looks like takeout tonight.
Seeing the older man dejected, Peter steps in.
I can make something, if you don't mind, that is.
The man looks at Peter, hesitant.
I don't know. You're a guest. It's no trouble. I like to cook, and I'd be more than happy to do it.
The older man still seems hesitant, but nods.
The meat's burnt, and I didn't pull anything else out. Why don't you and John go get something from the supermarket down the street? I'll give you my card.
Seeming to have heard his name, John joins them in the kitchen. Burnt dinner again, Dad? John says in a joking tone, much to Clark's chagrin.
Want to help me pick out some meat at the store?
Peter asks, hoping to save Clark some pride. The younger boy nods and runs to get his shoes. Peter briefly thinks that John acts so young, even though he's probably 14. But Peter's just not with the fact that it's normal to be so. Growing up fast had made Peter think everyone had. Shaking the thoughts from his head, Peter slips on shoes just as John takes Clark's card and meets him at the door.
Shall we?
Getting a nod, Peter opens the door and they start their journey to the store. One store journey later.
Want to help me make the burgers?
John nods and runs to wash his hands in the bathroom, Peter having done so already. Clark was in the other room working on an article, so he had said. Putting the seasoning into the bowl, Peter feels a tingle in the back of his head. Window, right. Turning, Peter sees the form of a man, just a bit younger than him, crash through the window, aiming a punch at his head. Ducking out of the way and pulling the meat out of range of the glass shards, Peter sees a familiar face, the one from the picture in the living room, but he's wearing a blue shirt with a red S on the front, a leather jacket falling to the sides as he stands. Peter recognizes the symbol as Superman's. Before Peter can think about what that means, another punch is thrown his way. Ducking under it, Peter is forced to block a kick that follows as he reaches the floor.
Who are you and why are you in my house?
Despite the questions, the man doesn't give Peter a chance to respond. While ducking and dodging, Peter is able to get out a quick,
Peter, staying, job,
when the next blow is blocked for him.
Connor.
This seems to make the man freeze, as Peter looks up to see Clark.
Dad, why?
Clark cuts him off.
This is Peter, the house guest that I told you about.
By the look on Connor's face, he had not actually been listening when Clark had told him.
Shit. Language,
Clark reprimands.
Sorry, dude. I thought you broke in.
Connor rubs the back of his head as he gives a sheepish grin.
Broke in and was cooking dinner?
Peter can't help but quip. Connor clears his throat, but sticks his hand out to Peter, who hesitantly takes it.
Connor, by the way. Peter, sorry about trying to punch you. You're quick, though.
Thanks. It takes a moment, but Connor goes into the other room to change, as Clark cleans up the mess. Unsure of what to do, Peter continues to cook dinner in silence.
So, Connor's Superboy?
Clark coughs, but doesn't turn around when answering.
Yeah.
Peter nods as he mixes the seasoning into the meat.
Does that mean you're Superman?
Peter hears Clark stop sweeping.
Yeah.
He sounds so defeated that Peter can't help to feel bad.
Does Mr. Wayne know?
This seems to take Clark by surprise.
Yeah, he does.
Once again, Peter nods.
Then it's none of my business.
Peter would be damned if he said anything about a secret identity. Lord knows he's been on the other end of it. A strange turn of phrase, all things considered. Clark gives a thank you, but continues to sweep. Soon enough, dinner is done, and there's only a little awkward silence before they dig in. John hums from around his bite. Connor does the same.
This is really good, Peter. Ever thought about being a chef?
Clark asks, making Peter laugh. Thanks, but no, I'm more interested in science. Peter had to learn to cook. Actually cook. Around a year ago. After Aunt May had passed, and no one remembered him, he had to fend for himself. Even when he had made connections to people, they weren't exactly the cooking or nurturing type. Hell, Deadpool almost only ate tacos, and Daredevil would forget to eat if it wasn't for Foggy and him. Pushing those thoughts aside, Peter finishes his burger as the Kents do the same. Before he can grab his dish, Connor grabs it. I got it. He and John quickly clean off the table as Clark guides Peter into the living room.
We should probably talk about the whole Superman thing.
Peter nods as he sits, waiting for the older man to continue.
I guess I should start from the beginning.
The next hour consists of Clark explaining how he came to Earth. He's from space? And how he had John and found Connor. He very reluctantly told Peter how they found Connor, the boy himself stepping in to tell Peter how he's half Clark's son and half Lex's son. Apparently, Lex Luthor is a very powerful man, status and money-wise, who made a kid with his and Superman's DNA. Weird, but okay. After the explanation, Peter feels it's right to tell Clark about his own powers, but he hesitates. He doesn't want anyone getting hurt.
Are you okay? I know it's a lot to take in. Sorry to spring all of this on you.
Peter shakes his head. No, it's fine. Just processing. Peter lies. He can't. Not yet. Not after what happened last time.
Should we watch that movie now?
Peter takes it for what it is, and out. Peter pulls up the movie while Clark makes popcorn. John and Connor grabbing blankets. Sitting on the end of the couch, Peter watches as Clark takes the other end, John sitting in the middle and Connor claiming land on the floor. While watching the movie, Peter drifts off to sleep, unaware of what this trip has in store for him. And that is the end of Chapter 19. There's no author's notes, just reader's notes, which I don't have many. I don't know if I said it last chapter, but I'm going into these blind. So there is definitely some surprises here. I like that we got to meet John and Connor. Superman's actually a good father to Connor. Oh my gosh, that never happens. Well, in fanfiction it happens sometimes. Hopefully the audio was decent here. I did get a little distracted braiding my hair in the middle of it, so hopefully you didn't hear too much of that, or that didn't affect the audio. But yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Please check out everyone else's videos if you get the chance. But I'm assuming if you've come this far, you've listened to everyone's already. The next chapter should be up tomorrow on Love Good's channel. And thank you guys for listening, and bye!